All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the program.
Here
So
we are.
here we are. So this time around, we're going to be doing a modification on reality checks. In the last 2 weeks, we were doing reality checks based on perspective memory. Like I'll remember to check to see if I'm dreaming whenever this happens. And that was cool in its own right. I mean, I remember one time when I was actually driving up to see you, I was like, every time I pass, I before I left, I was like, should I do it with a red car or a yellow car? And then I was like, red or yeah, I was like, yellow. Go with yellow. So I did yellow, and thank God, because of course the whole time I was like, every time I saw a yellow car, I'm like, am
Red
I
car,
dreaming?
red car,
Am I
red
dreaming?
car.
But there's so many more red cars than you think. It's crazy. So
Oh,
that would have been a ridiculous drive to keep my will
oh
intact and actually
God.
do the reality check. It would have been insane. So, but the yellow car worked really well. Um,
Yeah.
so anyway, this time it's going to be a little different, right? We're going to be doing it whenever something like odd or unusual happens throughout the day.
Yeah, and that's really the only modification is that, much like a dream, right? We're trying to do it when, we're trying to get, if it's a dream sign, that will recognize the dream sign, and that will tell us to do a reality check and realize that we're dreaming, right? So, and then the reality check is to confirm that we are or are not dreaming, right? So it's got to be something, usually it's something that kind of defies the law of physics, right? Like I'm either trying to float or I'm trying to fly, and or I'm looking at my hand and there's five fingers, and I look away and look back and there's six, or whatever it is, right? So um, it changes in a way that wouldn't be possible in the waking world. So that's the idea. But we can do it. There are many more times in a dream that unusual things happen. In the dream, what we're trying to get ourselves to do is to recognize that they're unusual. Like I had a dream one time where I was driving down the highway, and it was my normal way to work, right? And so because it's so common, right? That's the common scenario. It's 5 days a week I'm doing that. Well, three at this point with that route. And so as I was going, and then I'm driving, and all of a sudden I see like a car coming across the median strip toward my car, and that would be enough to sort of make you awake and aware, right? But not odd. I mean, odd, startling, but not odd. Like it was a car traveling across the median strip, and but what happened was my steering wheel turned into a flower, and I was like, and that was the thing that I went, oh, am I dreaming? It's like, do the reality check, and yep, sure enough. And so then I was off and away. And so it was very interesting though, because it was such a commonplace thing that and even the startling aspect of it, it was startling, but it wasn't odd, right? So plenty of times, somebody might just go like, oh, it's a flower. How am I going to use these petals to get out of the way? They just sort of fold it into the dream, right? And so it becomes this scenario that it doesn't seem odd. You just sort of react to it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So
I remember talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, you'd think that with all the crazy stuff that happens in dreaming, that you'd realize that you're dreaming because it's so insane. And
right. I mean, look at how many people have dreams about, or anybody. I mean, I've had plenty of dreams about like celebrities, and those are unusual for me, and usually tend to wake me up right away, because I don't, it's not like a thing for me, right? It's not like I buy People magazine every week or whatever,
right.
however often it comes out or whatever, so I'm not infatuated by celebrities. And so when I have them, I'm like, it's almost a dream sign, but one of these types of, oh, that's odd. What would that person be doing here? And, or interacting with me as if they know me. So there's that oddity.
I
And
think
then
it's
I'm doing a reality check, so.
Yeah, definitely. And I found that when I was doing the perspective memory reality checks, it was like because I'd set up like when something specific happens, I'm going to check to see if I'm dreaming. It's like it definitely brought a different level of awareness to my regular day, because it's like I'm always kind of looking for that thing, you know? And I noticed that even the dreams that I have that maybe I don't become lucid, it's like there are dreams sometimes where it's like I write it down as like semi-lucid or almost there kind of thing, because it's like my reasoning faculty starts to come online to a certain degree and starts to be like, wait, is this normal? And I starts to almost explain why I'm in that room or with this person or whatever. And that's much the same as with some of the members who have written in saying like, or talked about times where they're having dreams where they're arguing about lucid dreaming, or say, how many times a day and now with all the stuff that we're working on, it's like, how many times a day am I thinking about or talking about lucid dreaming with, like with my friends,
Right.
or whatever. And so having that, setting it up that you're going to check to see if you're dreaming when something odd happens, or maybe even when you're having a conversation about lucid dreaming or something like that.
Well, that's it, right? It's like anything that would sort of, that's sort of, it doesn't have to be totally odd either, right? It could just be something that's surprising in the day. Like, if I'm at work and I'm in between patients or whatever, and then my mom walks in, which is, it happens, but it's not that frequent. And so it's like, oh, that's a perfect thing where it's like I'm checking really quickly before she gets to the door. Like, oh, am I dreaming? It's like, no, 5 fingers. Okay, good. Not that I want to fly away from my mom or anything, So, but the idea is that, oh, it's I take that opportunity, I want to say unusual phone calls, or phone calls from people, like maybe a wrong number, right? Unless you get wrong numbers all the time. So anything in your day, I mean, if we really counted it, if somebody said, just think back about your day today, how many things did you experience that were unexpected? Like you tried to do something on the computer, but it didn't work, or you tried to, things were technological things skipped a beat or whatever. And it's like, oh, that's odd. Okay, well, there's a good place to check, so like getting in the habit of, like looking at things, almost bringing your analysis online when something just isn't quite right. Like there's just that hint of like, oh, that's, what did that person want on the phone, or, whatever, or you hear an exceptionally loud truck outside or whatever it is. And, those kinds of things that aren't normal occasions for you, anything that's odd out of the typical day, or unusual, of course, anything unusual, that's when I would do those reality checks, because it will just train that pattern into you. So, that alone, bringing your attention to bear on something like that and sort of going into analytical mode is a really great way to sort of snap into lucidity when you're in a regular dream.
Right. And this is something that you would set up in the morning, much like you would set up perspective memory, right? Or
nope, it's not even something that I would set up, because I'm just going to say from now on, like anything odd that happens, I'm going to respond to that, because that's a pattern that I want to instill in myself. So anything unusual, anything odd or out of the ordinary, I will just, I'll do a reality check. I'm going to check to see if I'm dreaming whenever that happens. And, you just start, I mean, for me, my routine's pretty set with patients and the things that I do. And I don't really get out in the day or whatever. So anytime something sort of interrupts that flow, or there's something unusual that I need to take care of, that's spur of the moment or whatever, that sort of triggers me into thinking, oh, I wonder if I'm dreaming. And then I check, and that's it.
Okay. So it's more of like a long-term practice and something you want to develop as a habit than it is something that's just like, today we're going to do this, or today we're going to do that, or that sort of thing.
Yeah. And there's some added benefit too, right? I mean, it's like anytime, I mean, we tend to trip ourselves up when we just respond to things that are odd, or we get, we can become stagnated by that, right? Like we don't know how to respond because it's something odd, right? And so, we make commitments that we probably should have thought through a little bit more, or, somebody asks you something, even something good, right? But it's unusual. And so instead of checking with your significant other, right, you just go ahead and make the commitment. And then, you find out, oh, you had something else planned on that day or whatever. So now there's all these things that are going to go on. So, being aware of these things that are sort of unusual events in the course of the day, no matter how small, it sort of starts to put you in that pattern. And by bringing our awareness to that and thinking, let me just take a step back here. I've got a couple of friends that really do that well through the day. And it's just, I can tell that that's one of those things that I admire about them. Like anything, even, it's not coming from me, but any time somebody approaches them while we're out or whatever, and they say something to them, if it's a question or whatever, they sort of take a second they pause and think about it. Like if it's something that somebody needs an answer right away or whatever it is, they just take a second to, I can see that they're running those things in their head. And that's that, that analytical part is kicking in and saying, should I commit to this? Should I not commit to this? Those types of things, or what should I say here? And how should I say it in the best way possible, or the most clear way? So they're not just sort of running off at the mouth as soon as something happens to sort of fill that void right away. And I think that's another one of those side benefits that happens from doing this practice on a regular basis. It makes us, wake up instead of sleep through those things in response. Just give it the standard response. Yeah, okay, well, let me check that out and I'll get back to you. It's like, no, you got to stop and think about it for a second. Maybe it's something you can just get rid of instead of stacking up all these things that then you've got to go back and really actually, do all this extra work to try to get an answer for the person or whatever. Is it something by taking 3 seconds to sort of ponder, can I give them an adequate answer right now to do that? And so bringing your attention to bear on those things that sort of come at you from left field, it wakes up your awareness, it wakes up your attention. So, and that's exactly what we want to have happen in a dream, right? To bring us into lucidity is, identifying those things that are like, that was a little odd. If I take a second to actually think about it, a flower for a steering wheel. No, I'm definitely dreaming, or somebody's having some fun with me, one or the other.
Right. It's like developing a more, I was going to say tenuous, but I think it's like there's less assumption there that what you're experiencing right now is just, normal or your normal waking day. It's like always.
Yeah, don't interrupt my flow. It's like at the same time, it's like maybe your flow is just unconscious, so it's like you want to bring your awareness back to it and really engage it in a good way. And, sort of looking for those oddities or unusual things that happen. And it doesn't have to be something completely unusual, right? It doesn't have to be your steering wheel turned into a flower. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen in a waking day, right? Because that would just be crazy. But but any little odd thing that just sort of is unusual for your day, that comes up. I mean, it can be anything, right? I mean, those are the things. It's like maybe I left my coffee too long and I just didn't even think about it, and I went back to take a drink of it and it was cold. It's like, so it's like that would be a point where I would go, am I dreaming? It's like nothing horrible, nothing, but just unusual, right? And it's like it sort of like brings you out of that normal flow and sort of makes you wake up and take notice. Well, that's kind of what we're trying to do with the lucid dreaming. And this is a great way to sort of train that pattern into yourself to, what are the triggers that make you become a little bit more analytical and awake at that moment. So
cool. All right. Well, I mean, I think I can do that. I'm nervous about committing to doing it and then following through with the will of actually doing the checks when things like that happen. But, we'll see how it goes. And
and I mean, it doesn't, obviously, I mean, you want to, if you're out in public, you want to have a reality check that you can do without anybody noticing that you're doing it, right? So
Right.
it's like all those things, and just have a couple key ones that you use all the time, and that'll be something that will be a pattern for you. And even just recognizing that pattern in the lucid dream, will stimulate you to be awake and aware within the lucid dream, right? Know that you're dreaming.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And
No problem.
we'll see you guys on the next video.